Welcome to EnVision Center News. Today's episode is all about the Community Cancer Services with Executive Director Cindy Marx and Resource Specialist Sara Hensel. Welcome to EnVision Center News. My name is Sara Hensel, and I'm the Resource Specialist and Volunteer Connect Coordinator for the Community Resource EnVision Center. And today my special guest I have with me is Cindy Marx. She is the Executive Director of the Community Cancer Services here in Sandpoint, Idaho. Welcome, Cindy. We are so glad to have you with us today.
I'm glad to be here, and thank you for having me, and thank you for doing this.
Yeah, it's going to be a good interview. So I'm going to ask you a little bit about yourself first and how you became involved with Community Cancer Services. So give us the down low on who you are and how you got started.
I've been in Sandpoint for 30 plus years now.
Nice.
Moved out here, just change of scenery. I came from Massachusetts, and I've done a bunch of things here in Sandpoint and know a bunch of people here in Sandpoint. I started out at the Sandpoint West Athletic Club. That was my degree, was in sports fitness and leisure studies.
Oh, that's cool. I like it.
It was a fun one.
Yeah.
And then I worked at Coldwater for a while.
Okay.
And worked at Ponderay Winery for a long time.
Okay.
And then I've kind of been around Community Cancer Services since its beginning. I knew one of our founders, Heather Gibson, and so I have been around with the fundraisers and things like that over the years, and I think it was about 2013 we were doing a fundraiser, and as we wrapped it up, I asked one of the board members, so what's it take to be a board member? And they said, you'd be perfect. And so I joined the board, I think, in 2014, and then in 2016 I was the vice president, and the president and I went to an event down at the CREC Center where there was a bunch of nonprofits, and there were guest speakers and all of that, and they were basically promoting donor maintenance software.
Okay.
And we're sitting there looking at each other going, we don't have any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And we don't have anybody on staff with the skill set, and we don't really have the time for them to do it or the money to pay them to do it, to do this. But this is like the next step for our organization.
Okay.
And so I chewed on it for a while, came back and proposed to the board that I come on as a paid employee, with the understanding that my job was to raise enough money to cover me and to bring the organization up to the next level financially.
Nice.
And I said, you guys pick 6 months a year. If I'm not paying for myself and then some, I walk away, and no harm, no foul.
Yeah.
It took them a month or two to figure that out and agree to that. And the day they agreed to it, the girl who had been working in the office gave notice.
Wow.
And so then the board comes back and says, well, you can just do both of those things. And so that was like in September of 2016, and I've been filling both roles ever since. And I've had some people help me in the office at different times in different ways, but we also have a counselor in the office that's there a couple days a week, so so that part of it gets fulfilled with
Wow.
with
I did
someone
not know
else.
you guys had a counselor.
Yeah.
That's great, because that's pretty vital.
The whole cancer diagnosis thing brings up so many things for the person diagnosed and the rest of the family.
Yeah.
And we can support them all.
Absolutely.
So,
Wow, that's incredible. So I noticed that on the website it said that you guys launched in 2002 and that it was started by a local citizen, and that you also have something called Heather's House. Can you give me more about that?
Yeah. So Heather was one of our founders.
Okay.
She herself had been diagnosed with cancer. And at that point in time, everything cancer-related was done in Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, Spokane, Seattle.
Gotcha.
And she had really good support and wonderful people to help her and her family. But as she was sitting there getting chemo injected into her veins, she's looking around that room, realizing that a lot of these people are also from Sandpoint.
Wow.
And they don't have those same resources.
Yeah.
And Cynthia Dalsing, who was a nurse practitioner in Sandpoint for a long time, was a friend of Heather's. And her description of it is just that just by being around Heather, you were going to want to get involved in whatever she was gonna get going.
Yeah.
And what she wanted to get going was helping people from Sandpoint get to these visits.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that also made Kootenai Cancer put in a facility up here. So this whole organization was instrumental in connecting all of those dots and getting something going up here.
Wow.
So the vision was to help people, and it was, initially just started by providing lunches at the cancer center once they got it going up here for the people who were getting chemo.
Yeah.
And then it was helping people with gas and things like that. But eventually they wanted like a little boutique with wigs and things like that. So they ended up with a little house that belonged to one of the churches in town.
Okay.
And volunteers came in, painted, renovated, whatever. And it was, it's one of these tiny little old Sandpoint houses that has like kitchen, main living space, 1 bedroom and a bathroom. And so they turned the bedroom into a little boutique for the wigs and hats and scarves and things. And I'm a 2-time survivor myself.
Okay.
So in going through going to get help from them and going and sitting in group and things like that, you walked into this little house and you sat in a living room and you were offered tea, and then there was
so nice.
the room that had the little boutique and everything, and
Yeah.
Heather's whole vision with that was that the people going through cancer treatment spend so much time in clinical settings that she wanted there to be a place where they could come and get support, and it wasn't a doctor's office.
Yeah, something sterile and uninviting. And yeah, it's like the last place you want to be when you're in that situation is somewhere that's kind of uncomfortable and alien. Yeah. So that's really nice.
What Heather's house was.
Okay.
But they also had the 501c3 and all of that, and so that organization became Community Cancer Services.
Okay.
Fast forward to 2018, and we got a call from Inovia Foundation that Heather's parents had left an endowment for Community Cancer Services.
Wow.
And it's called Heather's House Cancer Services.
Okay.
And so we have to keep that Heather's House in our name and honor what Heather wanted to have access to that endowment.
So does the house still exist?
The house still exists. I think it actually houses people now.
Okay.
I want to say it was like 2011 or something that we moved into a place on Michigan Street that we were in for a long time.
Okay.
And then in 2018, we moved into our current location.
Nice. Wow. Yeah, that's really, and she sounds like a really inspirational person.
Oh, she was wonderful. I knew her personally, and when I was diagnosed, I was walking down the street one day, and she was driving by, and she said, "Hey, I heard what's going on. How you doing? Let's go have lunch."
Yeah.
And that was just who she was.
Yeah. She was like, we're both dealing with this.
Yeah.
I totally understand what you're going through. Let's just talk about it.
Yeah.
So that is so cool.
Yeah.
So I really like the mission of what you guys are trying to do, because you're trying to ease the burden of those that are affected by cancer in our community. Can you give us more insight into how your nonprofit fulfills its mission and the services you provide?
So part of our original mission was getting people to appointments, and that's still a really big issue, because you can do chemotherapy in Sandpoint now, but if you're in Port Hill up by the Canadian border, you're still driving a long way just to Sandpoint.
Oh, yeah.
And then all of the radiation and things like that still have to be done in either Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, or Spokane.
Which is a super long drive.
Surgeries still have to be done.
Yeah.
Some surgeries still have to be done down there. And then if you've got a rare cancer, you may be traveling to Seattle for
like a
specialist or bone marrow transplants or things like that we just don't have in the area.
Yeah.
So working on that transportation piece is really big. And we get tons of support from the community and regional grantors for that, for those funds. And so basically what we do is we give people gas vouchers that are good. And we work with a lot of the local gas stations are wonderful supporters of that, because people hand them this little piece of paper and then they send me an invoice.
Yeah.
So that's that's one of our main things. It's just because also a lot of the people that we work with are on fixed incomes, and a lot of them are older, and all of a sudden you get this diagnosis where you have to drive to Coeur d'Alene or Post Falls or Spokane 5 days a week for 8 weeks. And I put together a chart. I don't have any of the numbers off the top of my head, but I put together a chart of how far it is round trip from Port Hill to Spokane, and then everything in between, kind of just to get an idea of how much driving that actually is.
Yeah.
And it's thousands of miles over the course of a treatment.
Wow.
And we all know what the cost of gas is now and how much it bounces around.
Yeah.
And if you're living Social Security check to Social Security check or paycheck to paycheck, you don't have discretionary funds to all of a sudden be putting thousands of dollars in gas in your car to go to these appointments. So
Wow.
So that's one of our critical things. The other thing we help with a lot of our folks with is grocery vouchers.
Okay.
Because all of a sudden your diet changes, or your ability to eat, your taste changes.
Yeah.
And a lot of these older folks, especially, and people on fixed incomes, they're not getting enough protein, and it takes protein to heal from cancer and cancer treatment. And so making sure they're getting good nutrition.
Okay.
The other thing that happens frequently, a couple times a year at least, is someone walks in the door with a stack of bills, a couple inches thick, because they just stop opening their mail because they have no capacity to deal with co-pays and hospital bills that a lot of the providers around here will help out on that, will ease that burden in some way, shape, or form. But you got to open your mail, you got to make payments, and people see that first, late notice or whatever, and they just stop opening their mail, and they stop answering their phones, and so they come in, and I take it all and open it all and organize it all by provider and put it in a spreadsheet and say, okay, this is what you owe, this is what CCS can help with, but you need to make these payments to these people, and let's get you back on track.
That's incredible. I think sometimes people get, with what they're going through, they get overwhelmed.
It's very overwhelming.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I like to say, one of my superpowers.
Yeah.
Is that my magic words are, I'm a survivor too.
Yeah.
My experience was different than your experience. My experience was quite a while ago now. So drugs have changed, treatments have changed, but I know just how overwhelming that is.
Yeah.
And so I'm here to help. And then there's the whole other set of people but I'm always the one that help. I don't ask for help. I don't know how to ask for help. And it's like, okay, let me help you now.
Yeah.
And then you can come back and be the helper again.
Yeah. I love that. That makes it so easy for you to have a connection with other people if you've been through that, and you can relate to them. So, are there any kind of qualifications that community members need to receive help? So
we have an application.
Okay.
And most times I actually get that from one of the cancer centers, because they will fill them out and let me know that this person needs help. And if it comes to me through one of the cancer centers, then it's already verified.
Okay.
People can pick that application up from me. There's other resources out there that have it. If it just gets mailed into me, then I have to confirm with the cancer center that there is a verifiable diagnosis of cancer. That's all I need, is a verifiable diagnosis of cancer.
Okay.
And it has all kinds of financial information and stuff on it, but it's twofold. It's kind of an exercise in having people look at how much money they make and how much money they're spending and where is their money going.
Ooh, okay.
Which a lot of people don't have a really firm grasp on until they sit down and write it down.
Yeah.
So it does that, but it also gives me numbers for grant writing, demographics for grant writing, and those numbers are never attached to the person.
Okay.
But yeah, it's so there is an application process, but it doesn't matter how much money you make, you're still eligible for services, especially our counseling and wigs, our boutique, wigs, hats, scarves, things like that. So that's the process.
Wow, that's really that's awesome. So it looks like that you guys are completely community funded, and I noticed that you have some fundraisers that you do a couple times a year. Can you tell us about the fundraisers?
Yeah, we haven't done our fundraisers in a while. Okay. We did a handful of small ones this year, and those were still nice, well received by the community. And so traditionally we had done the Mad Hatter Tea in the spring.
Ooh, that sounds like fun.
And then the Night to Remember in November. And I don't know if we'll get back around to those or not. We had kind of been looking at just doing one and kind of blending the two events or doing something a little different with them. So I'm not sure what our fundraiser will look like going forward, but as soon as we're on the other side of this whole COVID thing, we will attempt to do do that again.
Those sound kind of what? So are they themed fundraisers?
Yes. The Mad Hatter was totally Mad Hatter themed, and it was a big tea party, and we still have all these random tea cups and saucers and pots and things like that, and we would decorate all the tables with all of those, and decorate with just all. It was a lot of hours decorating, but it was really cool once it was set up.
That's really cool. Yeah. I think I might have saw some pictures of that.
Yeah, yep. There's definitely some on the website.
Wow, this is nice. Yeah, you guys did a great job.
Yeah. And then the night to remember was wine themed.
Okay.
So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then there are wonderful businesses and organizations throughout the community that do a variety of events for us over the year. And this year, some of them, because they're smaller and kind of in-house, still took place. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't connect with me beforehand, so I can, give them a little exposure and at least a Facebook shout out beforehand. Yeah. But then things, I try to always thank them on Facebook at least afterwards. But it is amazing. It's just all these little things, and of course, a lot of stuff happens in October around Breast Cancer Month.
Okay.
But still, it's just like all year round, all these things trickle in and
kind of pop up.
Yeah, and it's just amazing. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. I really should advertise these things, but they got to let me know they're doing them.
It's great that you guys have so much community support.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And then just donations, just straight up donations from community members, and then grants, because we don't get funding from state or federal organizations or anything like that. It's mostly small local organizations that provide grants to us, like Community Assistance League and things like that. So there's still, even that is really localized.
Yeah, I've found, since I'm kind of a newbie here, that Sandpoint is such a tight-knit community. Yeah. I mean, more than anywhere I've ever experienced. And I can see how people can come together so easily and just lift people up in their time of need. So I think that's wonderful. So let me ask you a few more questions. So I just kind of want to know, what do you feel like the goals are going forward with Community Cancer Services, and what is a big win for the organization?
I as long as cancer is affecting members of our community, I think we just keep on doing what we're doing and hopefully just continue to grow the amount of support we can provide, because we have a limit per client per month, just so that we average around 200 people a year.
Okay.
With anywhere between 35 and 50 of those getting support in any given month. But the reality is, I'd like to be giving people a lot more money for gas than we are,
Sure,
and then every now and then someone comes along with a bigger need, and it's just like, I don't really have an ability to do one time. I can put tires on your car, or I can fix your car, or I can do something. I can pay your down payment because you have to move into a ground floor place now, and
Sure.
So I don't really have that much leeway on those kind of things for the most part. So just having a little more ability to go an extra mile for someone who needs it as a one-time thing. And then as far as a big win, I think it's just a big win that we're still doing what we're doing all these years later. I'm actually holding out some hope that with the whole mRNA vaccine thing for COVID, that might actually lead to some of the cancer breakthroughs that they're hoping it will.
Okay. Wow.
Because, my ideal, and I say this all the time when I get up and speak at events, is I wouldn't have a job.
Yeah.
Because cancer wouldn't be affecting our community the way it is.
Yeah.
But as long as it is, I'm hoping Community Cancer Services will continue to be there to support people.
Yeah, I hope so too, because it's definitely, like you said, there's not really that hub here. And you don't have to send people down to Coeur d'Alene and Spokane. You want them to be able to be in their home and be comfortable and with their friends and family around them. Yeah. So that support here is much needed.
And there's not a lot of support from the bigger national cancer organizations for people here. It's like they kind of kick in if you're going to travel to Seattle for for help or
Gotcha.
something like that. But there's not a lot of support here locally
Okay.
from those bigger organizations.
You guys are the support.
We are.
Yeah. So, as the Volunteer Connect coordinator here, you have been such an active supporter on there, and that just tickles me. So, I just wanted to thank you for that, first of all. And that I know that you were also able to use Volunteer Connect to find somebody for your booth when we had the Bonner County Fair. How did that go for you?
That worked. A lot of what I've got posted with you is just kind of standing things that we always need. We always need drivers to get our clients to treatments if they're unable to drive, and we're always looking for board members. And right now we're looking for a treasurer. But those one-off event things, I don't post that often. And I just happened to. It's like, oh yeah, I need people to sit out at the fairgrounds.
Yeah.
And so I put that one up. And the gal who responded was wonderful. She was new to town and she was just looking for
She was so nice.
some stuff,
Yeah.
some stuff to do. And she was my first volunteer of the time period. And so it just like I just met her out there. She helped me set up the booth, and we just talked, and I gave her some information, and I was like, here's my cell, call me if you have any questions. But it was just awesome to have that, just kind of out of the blue person. And yeah.
She did such a great job.
Yeah.
I actually went over to the booth and I was introducing myself and was telling her about Volunteer Connect. And she was like, oh yeah, that's what I use to do this position.
That's great.
Yeah. So I know that you said that you have some volunteer positions available. Can you tell me more about those, what the commitments are, and what you're looking for in a volunteer?
So our volunteer positions really kick in hard when we do our big fundraisers, which obviously we haven't been able to do in a couple of years.
Sure.
Other than that, the day-to-day stuff, because we have to basically do a medical level of client privacy, there's not a whole lot of stuff where people can come into the office and do office work for me or something like that, say. But I do have little jobs around the office, and it's, if anybody likes playing with hair, there's always, come in and fluff our wigs in our boutique, and they get changed out seasonally and stuff like that. So there's little jobs like that, and someone come in and dust once in a while and things along those lines. Just
Sure.
some little stuff like that. I have some of my board members help me put return address labels on envelopes and those kind of things. And every now and then I'll have a project, and if I have a project and I need an extra pair of hands, I'll put it on Volunteer Connect.
There you go. I love it. So to kind of wrap things up, I know that you guys have provided so much support and assistance to this community because I've never experienced having cancer, but I did have a relative of mine that was young and got neuroblastoma, and it was devastating. And so I see how that affects the family, it affects you, and it's just overwhelming at that time. So I'm very grateful that you guys are here to support this community. So I just want to know, what do the viewers and members of our community need to do to help you guys be more successful? What do you want them to know out of everything about CCS?
Mostly I want them to know we're here.
Okay.
Most people don't know about us until they are what you just described, either a patient themselves or a friend or family member of someone. So just know that we're here, and that we're here to help, and that we get our support through the community. And then I think that's the main things, is just spreading the word that we're here and we can help. Too often it seems like I get people in when they're 3/4 of the way through it.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I could have done more earlier. So just spreading the word, I think, is really one of the main things.
Absolutely. So I know that you have some news that you would like to tell us about. It's sad news, but we love you, and we're glad that you're taking your life in your hands. So tell us about it.
So I am retiring in the coming year.
Okay.
My board is working out the final details on the job description and pay rates and all of those technical things, and they'll probably be posting the job in the coming weeks.
Okay.
And so if anyone's out there that's got a passion for this, it's kind of a twofold job. And it may actually be 2 positions when it's all said and done, because there's the the compassionate, empathetic side of it, where you're working day to day with the clients.
Sure.
And then there is a business to run and
Yeah.
fundraising to do. And the counselor in the office calls me a unicorn because I can wear both of those hats. And she's seen me do this so many times where I've got 4 different projects on my desk. I'm writing a grant. I'm balancing the day's receipts of whatever money's come in. I'm
Yeah.
writing checks to pay whatever bills. And someone walks in the door in tears. And I put this away. I walk out there and I sit and help in any way I can, including crying with them if that's what it takes.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times that's depending on how long that takes, how much energy that takes. Sometimes I can go back to the desk and finish that, and sometimes that just all gets swept into the desk drawer for the next day.
This can wait.
And I go play in the boutique for a while.
You're like fluffing those wigs.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a hard thing to balance both. But as someone with an office background and having experienced cancer, I've been able to do both for 5 years.
Understand. Yeah. Wow. Well, we're going to miss you because you have a big heart.
Thank you.
So I know that, somebody else will come along, but they will never be able to replace Cindy Marx. But I'm glad that you are kind of moving forward and you're going on to a new chapter in your life, and something else that's great is going to come out of that. So I just want to say that to stay connected with the viewers, they can go to your Facebook page, which is Community Cancer Services.
Yep.
And can you tell us a little bit more about that, or any other ways they can reach you or contact you?
They can call,
Okay.
and our website, we're in the process of getting a new website up, but our former website is still up there, so it's just communitycancerservices.com.
Okay.
The phone is 208-255-2301. We're on the corner of Highway 2 and Michigan in Olive. I'd say call first, just because with the COVID numbers in the county, I'm trying to be really careful about not having too many people in the office at one time.
Sure.
So I'm trying to make appointments, just because our clients are immune compromised, and
Right.
we're trying to keep them all safe.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Well, wonderful. Well, I'm so glad that you joined us today. And as always, if you want to find more about the opportunities that Cindy has at Community Cancer Services, you can always go on the website, but go to Volunteer Connect as well and reach out to them and just see if you have a passion for this, get to know them, and maybe somebody could be the new Cindy Marx.
Maybe. That would be wonderful.
Thank you for joining us
Thank you for
today.
having me. Thank you for doing this.
And we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for listening to today's episode. For more information, you can go to CRECidaho.com. Please like, share, and subscribe. We will see you again soon.